We produced a series of imagery that were specifically intended to help people understand the spaces in a bit more detail. That starts with a kind of concept sketch, and the concept sketch really tries to take all the things that the users and the Rare Dementia Support Centre staff and the National Brain Appeal asked us to build into the project. It was a kind of collage of sorts that we used before we had even a survey of the building carried out. And it gives you a sense of the types of space that we were trying to evoke within the building. So group activities, spaces to dance, small rooms for sanctuary, spaces where you might be able to have a consultation or some therapy, a front door that's open and visible, but in the middle of it all, a really lively and homely experience. That concept diagram then helped us inform how we were going to divide up the existing buildings and create a series of spaces. So within the process of the project, we created a number of CGIs, so computer-generated images, that try and help people understand how the building feels without necessarily having the ability to be able to read architectural drawings. So these are produced in kind of two-dimensional images of spaces, but there's also some three-dimensional panoramics that are on the website that people can look at and experience in a sort of more immersive way. So I'll talk you through some of the key spaces just to explain the design thinking and ethos behind how we've approached the Rare Dementia Support Centre. In the kitchen, you can see a brightly lit, welcoming environment that centres around a kitchen table that's very domestic in terms of its feel. The kitchen doesn't look like a corporate tea point or an institutional cafe. It is intended to feel like a homely environment. Crucially, there's accessible spaces, so somebody in a wheelchair can use the sink. There's a pull-out drawer below the microwave so they can put their hot bowl of soup or coffee or whatever it needs to be on that before they take it out of the oven. Immediately adjacent and behind the sort of static view is one of the therapy rooms. So you can spill out of the central kind of kitchen area where there might be a group of people talking into a quieter space for maybe a one-to-one. But there's also opportunities for other kind of more domestic matters. So there's some reading material, there's opportunities to bring flower arranging and maybe even some small baking into the space. On the first floor in the Rare Dementia Support Centre is a seminar room. Now, the seminar sounds quite formal. Within the project team, we've also referred to it as a lounge. It feels more like a reception room or somebody's front room. It takes over the main space at the front of both of the terraces and looks out over the square. It's got wonderful views of the tree canopy, and we've also designed in an intention for some flower boxes on the balcony so that people can look out across plants. In the seminar rooms, there is an opportunity to really use them as quite a multifunctional space, and one of the aspirations that the Rare Dementia Support Centre have is to use this space almost as a gallery. You'll see in the images that we've actually placed on the wall some artwork which has been produced by existing visitors to the Rare Dementia Support Centre. But there is an aspiration that that space might house a slightly more large scale, perhaps a couple of times a year, art exhibition of the work produced by people that use the centre. On the upper floors of the buildings, there's a series of smaller scale spaces. They are generally speaking set out as consultation rooms, and those are spaces where a visitor to the centre could have a therapy session, a consultation session, and generally feel slightly more one-to-one with a practitioner who can help them navigate some of what they're dealing with. As a result, the spaces are very domestic feeling. There's comfy sofas, easy chairs, spaces for a coffee table, artwork, a few sort of domestic props on shelves, so things that you might feel make you much more at home rather than being in a support centre. And the aspiration there is really to make people feel comfortable in their environment so they can open up and they can let go of some of what they're holding on to. At the back of the buildings, at the moment, there's a pretty unloved rear garden, and I mean it's small, and there's a large kind of brick wall at the back. So this is a huge opportunity for the Rare Dementia Support Centre. They can bring in a new landscape that will really give people who visit the centre an opportunity to take some proper respite away from the city in somewhat of a green haven. We were privileged enough to be able to appoint Charlie Hawkes, who's a landscape designer, who had designed the Rare Space Garden at Chelsea Flower Show. And he's done an absolutely stellar job taking what is a really difficult, constrained site, helping us to put in a new platform lift that means it's level and accessible for those who use mobility aids, putting in a new, very flat, smooth surface that allows people to access the whole garden, and then selecting a series of really wonderful plants that have a different feel and sense throughout the year. So colours change as the seasons change, smells change as the seasons change, but the path is wide enough and has points where a wheelchair can turn around and dwell. Within the garden, there's some small totems that you can see. You can see them particularly in the vignette images. These are water features, and there's a lot of evidence to suggest that people living with dementia react really positively to the sound of moving water. So those are included deliberately to kind of punctuate the space as people move through them. You'll also see that there's climbing plants growing up the walls. That's all intended to make sure that no matter where you are in the centre, you're always looking out towards something green and reviving.